Jagdish has extensive experience in the minimally invasive esophageal surgery. Dr. God.
We give credit to Vattikuti for having introduced robot in India. Almost 9 years back, there was a huge group, and when we wanted, we were very enthusiastic to learn robo. Vattikuti has always helped us, and that's the reason. Even if we are now a 20 group, also we do come. It is just out of respect for the foundation, which has done a lot to us. Even in a small group, we just stay, we just hang around with them, and tell whatever we have done. So, thanks to Vattikuti, which has done a tremendous work from 4 robos in India, now it is 75 robos. It is a hard work done by Vattikuti and their people, which has helped in developing the robotic surgery. So, next slide. I can change from here. Q. So, next. So we many times we learn, unlearn and relearn. Like we used to do in Kidwai, we used to do open surgery a lot. We published data of 256 esophagectomies. There used to be around 30% mortality those days in 1999, 1980 when we started by Dr. Prabhakaran. So I was asked to, as a postgraduate, I was asked to make a paper. Those days they used to select a lot of bad cases without FE1 properly and putting a lot of hand inside the trans hiatus and doing those things. Then I thought, why so much morbidity, why they don't do minimally invasive morbidities, and then we started shifting to minimally invasive. Minimally invasive, again, ports are different and things are different. Then we have to unlearn the minimally thoracoscopy procedure and relearn different. Actually, now the robot has made our life very simple, 3D vision, intuitive movement, tremor free surgery. It has made our job very easy. Next slide. Okay, I can change. So this is what Yoda told long back when I was a kid. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. That's what we do. And, as Som told, the individual skills of surgery is very important. Not the robot doesn't give a warrant to do better. It is the surgeon skill. Like I've seen Subramanyeshwar in our Hyderabad, Saklani, Som sir, Jagdish sir. They all have individual talent. How to actually they modulate the robot. What I feel we all should come together and do something for India where we can make it low cost. Actually, I have been speaking to some of my friends in IIT and all. They're very keen on that, and they were asking us how to develop it. It is very silly. 35 crores, 30 crores, 28 crores, robo, and we're not able to give service to our Indians. So I have been working on that, and if anybody interested can ping me. Something for the Indians, which should cost very less. That's what our idea is. Even the instruments, it's very silly, 10 users, 12 users, 15 users, and the single port, $75,000 for 10 cases. I don't think it's practical for India. So we're all working on that. Individuals who are interested can ping us for that. And this is the remuneration, $1,099 million in 1 quarter. That's how the robotic world is growing. I'll go back to, can you go back to the video? Video. No, my video. There's a separate video there. If you can minus that, minus it. Go to the folder. The top one, you go back there. No, go back. Yeah. So actually, Pallivelu sir was asked to tell about esophageectomy. So I didn't tell about it. This is a standard. I can pause this. Okay. So the nodal dissection, we initially tried the ports below the scapula, underneath the scapula. Then we shifted our ports, one below 2 centimeter below the scapula edge, then 4 to 5 centimeter below that is the first port, the bipolar. The monopolar, we put a Veress needle above the medial border of the scapula and go inside and see the movement, the supraesophageal area, and then do that. This we found slowly advantage for doing a supraesophageal lymph nodal dissection. Initially, we never used to do the azygous vein clipping, but opposite side lymph nodal dissection, the aortopulmonary window nodal dissection, the hump of the instrument was hitting the azygous vein and above. That's the reason we were forced to do ligation and clipping of the azygous vein and bronchial artery. So it's a very, all of us know the advantages of robo, I don't have to tell about that. So this is, I have skipped the esophaectomy part and directly I'll go to the mediastinal nodal dissection. Then we go on, this will help us in going on to the opposite side. That's the way you go. We don't put any sling, we don't hold the esophagus, we use the hump of the instrument to hold the esophagus. And even if the assistant wants to assist, he should not put any instrument directly over the tracheal membrane. And we never use a double lumen tube, we use a single lumen tube. And the bipolar should be at very low energy, preferably at 20, not high. Monopolar cautery also should be very low, and it should be few bursts. The very fact that if you injure the RLNs on either side or the tracheal membrane conducted current, it is very disastrous for the patient. Post-operative ventilator rate is very high. And most of our cases, we select the cases with FE1 more than 60%, good performance status. Advanced disease we don't take up. Most of the case selection is also good. Initially we used to do right bronchial, left bronchial, aortopulmonary, everything we used to clear. But 4 to 5 patients had to be ventilated and we lost 2 patients among those. Very radical nodal dissection including thoracic duct. So over a period of time, especially most of our cases, you can see there, you can see the RLN coming there and aortopulmonary window over that. See, that's the dissection there. So we have now do right RLN, left RLN, subcarinal, right tracheal, right and left tracheal, as well as all the periesophageal lymph nodes all around the thoracic duct, aorta, as well as the esophagus. And you can see the avoiding the double lumen helps us in keeping the tracheal membrane free. Sometimes when you use a double lumen tube, the balloon comes down, and we tend to hit that lumen, and with the tracheal membrane being close to that balloon, it can damage the pressure necrosis. It can cause pressure necrosis. That's the reason we avoid double lumen tube, which has a longer length. We use a simple single lumen. Then turn the camera from below up and see, look over the tracheal membrane towards the cervical area. So that's the trick there. And lift up the with the bipolar, lift up the esophagus there. Absolutely no assistant is required in the prone. You can see the membranous trachea, and be very, very careful. As Som was telling, he started avoiding scissors. The hump of the instrument can conduct the current. The sheath is never foolproof. Whatever, even if you put a new sheath, they do conduct current. I had 2 injuries. Luckily, I saw it on table and sutured it on the same time. So we should be very careful there. Never try to touch the tracheal membrane much, and be away from the tracheal membrane. That's the trick there. So this is the most difficult part. Lower esophagus is quite easy. It will be over very fast, but supraesophagus is the area which is very difficult to do. We can forward it a bit. Then this I have used it. We should not use the suction directly over the tracheal membrane. That's what I wanted to show there. So even if you want to use an instrument, we should put a gauze piece over the tracheal membrane and use the instrument there. Then identifying, if you are not able to identify the RLN nodes, identify the vagus nerve. That's the vagus nerve there, and go all along above. That you will go to the, then you will go to the RLN nerve. So we clear the lymph nodes and the right paratracheal there. Then you can go on right bronchial nodes and then go on to the recurrent laryngeal nerve hooking around the vessel. And we always remove these lymph nodes in a pouch, never through the port, maintaining the oncological principles. And you can see how beautiful it will be to see the recurrent laryngeal nerve in a 3D vision. This is a 2D vision, but in 3D vision it looks stunning and it's absolutely beautiful. Only thing, initially we were very over enthusiastic. We used to use cautery high, and then we had little temporary paresis. After that, we try to avoid monopolar most of the time, if necessary only, and try to use a bipolar. So I have compared ourselves with the anterolateral position as well as the prone position. We are quite happy with this prone position, and we are able to clear the lymph nodes as described in the literature. The RLN, the left RLN, right RLN, the right bronchial, left bronchial, subcarinal, and all periesophageal lymph nodes. And that's the way you remove. Then we put it in a small pouch. This is just a plastic pouch. The sister makes it. One thread is through the port only, and that is closed there. So this will avoid the spillage, and each node is just for academic purpose. We just label it. It doesn't may not have any sanctity. Then that's the subcarinal nodes. Majority of the time there is a small tiny vessel from the carina. This is the one starts bleeding, and we try to be over enthusiastic and try to cauterize it, and the carina can get damaged. So that's the area we should be very careful, and here use as minimal cautery as possible. I felt many times if you are overusing the cautery near the subcarina, patient will not be able to cough the expectorant out, and post-operatively it leads to longer time in the ICU. So lower down subcarinal node doesn't have much vascularity, so it is easy. There, that point you will see always a constant vessel will be there near the carina, and in trying to cut it, we may cause conduction current damage to the tracheal membrane. So we should be very careful to do that. Then all these periesophageal lymph nodes we can take out. That's the aorta pulmonary window. So after doing the azygous vein clipping, you can go on to the RLN and trace it down. The anatomy is different on the right side and the left side. The opposite side, the nerve is straight. It goes straight into the aorta pulmonary, whereas here it hooks around the subclavian. So the anatomy in prone, it takes some 2-3 cases for most of us to learn the anatomy and do the nodal clearance. You can see lower down there is an aorta pulmonary node there that will be cleared. So that's aorta pulmonary window and the nerve. There is another node near the thoracic duct in the posterior side, anterior to the aorta. So we can, with the beauty of the tremor filtration and the maneuverability of the instruments, we can do a nice dissection with 2 instruments. So whichever you are comfortable, whether hook, spatula or scissor, only thing is the dictum is never use the current, use only the tip. Let the instrument dance in the air. We should never touch the hump anywhere around. So that should be the goal, and try not to open the opposite mediastinum. Sometimes it leads to fluctuation, and this is the, you can see the azygos. Sometimes we see these nodes around the azygos vein. Initially only we try to remove them. Once you clip the azygos vein, these nodes will go up, so it will be difficult to do. With these 2 instruments it will be easy. We published 162 cases of robotic hysterectomy, of which 2 cases, this because of excess trauma in the azygos vein, slowly the ischemic oozing started coming. So one should be careful while we are doing this dissection, not to injure the azygos vein, but if it is injured, you can just clip it, it's not a problem. And bronchial artery is never a big problem to catch it. You can see there bronchial artery behind, it is very easy to, you can sometimes cauterize also. Then these nodes are very important to be cleared along with the specimen or in a pouch. Just forward it. Yeah, little. See, yeah. Next. I think it's the same thing. Mediastinal is another case, I think. Next, little more. Yeah. So here we can go along the RLN. Again, this is another case with a recurrent laryngeal nerve lymph nodes we are trying to remove and preserve the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Little forward, little forward. Yeah, you can see the nerve will go up along over the hook around, and then it goes up. It slowly comes into the exposure. This is the most difficult area to dissect in the supraesophageal part. This is the most area most difficult area to do the dissection. But it is important for staging. I know not many randomized controlled trials are there with support or the irrational dual dissection, but we are not finding much morbidity or mortality of doing these things, and we continue to do that. PPT. PPT. Close this. Come down, come down, 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 down. Yeah, stop, stop. Play. So Oringer has always been a hero for most of us. Even I was very fond of him. And his landmark paper of 1,000 cases is definitely is a landmark paper. And many of us, is one of our cases where people have stented it and left it, but we found ischectomy is a better palliation. And this is the, I think, theory I don't have to tell because most of you know all this theory, 3-field, 2-field. And next paper. And these are the different advantages. We have published this, a total robotic ischectomy, around 162 cases. Last slide. I think next time I can go in detail about the paper. Next. So this is a position, anterolateral. I usually do in prone. Next. I was told to tell about mostly technique, so I am sticking to the technique. These are the 2 ports which we use. Next. This is a figure. Next. So I feel single port will be a huge advantage for us. Last year I have been to Korea where I have seen this video, single port, and had a small training. It's a very beautiful thing, 3.2 centimeters port through which all the 4 instruments are coming. Only thing, the camera is, the whole set comes only for 10 to 15 cases. So hopefully they make it cost effective for India. And I feel future is virtual reality and artificial intelligence, and all of us should look into this. Most of you are very intelligent, and all of you should look into these things and learn lessons in our journey. Next. And as Som told, good surgeons will make use of technology. Technology won't make us look good. So good surgeons, whether open lab, robo, they're all same. And we have to use our judgment, what to do, what not to do. Whether we like robo or not, advances keep coming. It's very slow. If we don't learn it, we will miss the train. It's for the youngsters, not for the... But I give credence to Sushruta, the open surgery. Many times I have seen some of our surgeons, they do laparoscopy robo, but they can't open. Thoracotomy, if I ask them to do, they won't come and they'll become slow. So one should always remember Sushruta, who has taught us. And also, we have made some rules. Whenever there is a problem, we should know when to open. I think I need not tell all of you. So we have made some rules, more than 200 ml blood loss, more than 4 hours of surgery, we just open the case. We don't continue doing robotic surgery. I think that's it. Thank you so much. Take questions.
Yeah, it's a great demonstration of mediastinal lymphadenectomy. We also have now good experience. We are doing about 35-40 cases per year, and not opened up the thorax for last 5 years now. As we have started doing dissection around the recurrent laryngeal now, and as we keep on moving the needle more and more aggressive, we feel that we have about 15% rate of recurrent laryngeal now palsy, and that's a real challenge. Generally on the left side, but we do have observed and about 5% permanent recurrent laryngeal now damage. What is your experience?
Our anastomotic leak is less than 1%, but stricture rate is 12%. RLN palsy temporary is 12%. Permanent is only 2%. Those are the cases where a lot of lymphadenopathy was there, and where we were over enthusiastic. Those are initial series where we used to put the cautery 25-30 like that. So we use very low cautery and try to avoid monopolar as much as possible. And the newer, I think you have XI, the vessel sealer and all those things. It's a little bulky. That is the problem. So such a making a modulation in the cautery strength. Second thing, not holding the nerve directly, using the hump of the instrument to lift it, and using a gauze piece for bleeding. That will minimize. I know I've seen you. You're a meticulous surgeon. Small changes, I think, can make a difference.
So, as Som was mentioning about the hook, but I think the scissors would be very important at the RLN because we use the cold cut at
Yes.
RLN and don't use the power. So that would be actually a challenge for this.
That's a good
particular-
point.
Um,
Actually, I've given a very important topic to Som about the G junction because adenocarcinoma is increasing tremendously. Sir. It's a new, I think this ischectomy anybody will do now. Most of the people in India will do all this mediastinal nodal dissection and all. But the G junction tumors are increasing tremendously and it is definitely a challenge, especially if you want to do a robotic Ivor Lewis. And the leak rates are little higher, I don't know why, compared to the total ischectomy. So I think some improvisations and newer techniques of robotic anastomosis should be brought in by all of you.
So, as you showed that posterior layer anastomosis and even the anterior border also we will close with the stapler. And using this, actually, even in the neck, we do the same technique anastomosis, and it has definitely reduced the leak rate in our cases. And you were just mentioning, so we have in Ivor Lewis about, again, 6% leak rate intrathoracic, and fortunately, we have a backup of gastroenterologist and we have put stents. As soon as we realize that there is a leak, we would put the stent, and we have been able to salvage all patients. Otherwise, it's a real disaster for us. You mentioned that you don't do the stent in these patients? Ivor Lewis leak.
When there is a leak, we analyze it through our. So then we put a rice tube and decompress the stomach, give a ultrasound radiated scan, drainage, etc. If it is a major dehiscent, then we do the stent. And we had two patients who like that with the salvage with the stent. They take for retrievable stent with the hook. You know, they put a hook on the both sides. Because most of the time it just stands and it falls down.
Yeah. So they have to put a clip.
They put a hook.
So yeah. So
I used that 3 weeks after that they removed and it healed. And one of them was the doctor's father.
because these are covered stent. So otherwise, you have to put the clip. And,
3 weeks they held and
Yeah. Okay. Let's.
I cut off that, we know that 11 is the summer part. So once you do the summer part, then you take it through the first and then suction coat at the
Majority in the abdomen. Majority to the abdomen.
No, stomach part we always have taken more, no, because we transected the insula. Esophagus I divided the other. Through the abdomen. Because there we have a simple direction to wound. So that
Junction upper part will not be a problem. Second is the lower margin.
We always take out through the thorax, and we always send frozen section. At least adenocarcinoma, always frozen section.
Yeah.
So actually we follow the because anytime you try using
Yeah, we tried, but it's cumbersome, not required.
unless you are doing a restoration, the only time I put a fourth arm
Ivor
is
Lewis-
when I do anastomosis.
Ivor Lewis is okay.
When I do the anastomosis, the fourth arm stabilizes the specimen and holds it.
so that is like when you are using the tool, how you can
The lower one, lower down, near the diaphragm. What we do is we staple the, once we do the Ivor Lewis, we staple the down. The mid one, upper one third and lower two thirds, we staple it. Then put this force here, use the fourth arm to lift up the stomach and hold it near that, and the two, one right and left, two features. That's the way.
Anastomosis fourth arm is
Only
very,
for Ivor Lewis.
very stable and very good.
those cases are increasing tremendously.
Only for type 2 degeneration when you do high UVA, I could support.
In Satlani and Linky are waiting.